Is that a clue? That's a clue.
That's a big clue.
That's a big clue. This is Chris talking to you from the studios of WFC3. It is your weekly monkey business, and we are back to another installment of the Not a Book Club.
I don't think anyone could figure out what
routine.
we're talking about today.
I think that's... I have no idea. I think it's
outer
very,
limits, right?
But the truth is out there somewhere.
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone. The truth is out there.
Californication.
Yeah, that's it. Are we going to go through all of David Duchovny's series at this Red Shoe
Zolman
Diaries?
King's. Oh, man, you beat me to it.
Does anybody know this song?
I've heard this one. Why do I know this one? I like it. I'm just going to dance for a little while.
I got a band for David Duchovny.
Nice.
Don't you love me?
Who is this?
Bree Sharp. Bree Sharp.
When I was little, I used to call him my old man crush.
That's amazing. He's not that much older than I am. Great. Thanks, Doll.
Let's look and see how old Dave.
So our Not a Book Club laser focus, laser focus my ass, is going to be on X-Files this week. We're going to talk about that legendary cult
That
hit.
thing that you do? Oh, wait, that's a
that
totally
thing you do.
different
That we're going to get you back into that movie somewhere along the
It's
line.
a great movie.
He's 57.
He is?
He is.
He's 10 years older than I am.
See?
It's amazing.
You're not as old.
I feel like thank you. Not as old.
Not an old man crush.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing,
you
Dolly.
did not say you weren't old.
I'm not that old. But here's the thing, Dolly. I'm actually older than he was when you discovered that you had an old man crush on him. So
This is true.
so that's it. Anyway, here we are. We're going to be talking about the X-Files today. In particular, Season 3, Episode 20. Somebody give me the title again. It was Jose
Chung's from Outer Space.
Jose Chung from Outer Space.
Well, the Jose Chung's is in normal font, and then From Outer Space is in italics because that's the book he wrote.
Okay.
It's called From Outer Space.
All right. Was that Charles Nelson Riley's character?
Yes.
Was Jose Chung?
Yes.
Okay. So, and it
makes more sense now.
It features the now late Charles Nelson Riley in his over the top glory, and it's kind of like. As Sherry and I were talking about earlier, this is kind of like Leverage the Rashomon Job, which we've covered in the past, where it's the same story but from different perspectives. Now, you've got a couple of us here who are not X-Files fans, and a couple of us who are.
I've never seen the show.
You've never seen the show?
But it's one that it's always been sort of like I should watch the X-Files. I'd probably like it, but I haven't seen it. And this was actually the first episode I ever saw.
Okay, I've
sorry.
seen a handful of episodes of it. Yeah, and
I kind of liked it. We'll get into it. I kind of liked it, but feel like I was missing something.
All right,
by not being a fan going in.
I do. I agree with you because I don't think I've ever really considered myself an X-Files fan. I never was gaga over the movie, and like when they did the reboot recently, I was like, okay, whatever. I've seen a handful of X-Files episodes over the years, and they've always left. I never disliked it. I've never been like, I hate this show, but I've always
Friday night, 9 o'clock, had to watch it.
I've always been of the opinion
Friday
of
or
like,
Sunday,
all right,
Sunday.
Was it Sunday?
Yeah.
I knew it was one of those
It
nights.
started Friday, moved to Sunday, and you did know it wasn't a spin-off of the X-Men comics, right?
Yes, I did know that. I always knew that part.
Now it's funny because this episode is 21 years old. And
this episode is now old enough to drink. Let's take it out because it really does need to get verschnickered.
and it's funny.
I thought it already was.
Yeah. Oh man, it's on.
Someone was verschnickered in there.
Wow, is all I got to say. So now Tanya and Sherry, you're also a big fan of the show, yes? So on the other end of the spectrum is Tanya and Sherry. They're big X-Files fans.
And Zach, you're a big fan.
And Zach is a fan.
Although the latest quote-unquote season
had some
The moment for me there is when Mulder falls off the wagon, wakes up in the cemetery to his phone ringing, and his ringtone is the X-Files theme.
That would have made me laugh. That would have made me laugh, to be honest with you.
The episode was good because it was, I think, the were-lizard.
I have to go back and rewatch.
It was a lizard monster, but he kept turning human because he was bitten by a human.
That's
There's
clever.
a twist.
That was clever.
That's a clever
I
twist.
gave it that, but when he woke up to the X-Files song as his ringtone, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
This sounds like a Simpsons version of the
was.
X-Files.
Well, there was it that episode where the guy talks about seducing Scully and it's just fake, he's making it up, and Mulder goes, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think, yeah, because that was the guy. He was posing as like a cell phone salesman or something, but he was really a lizard.
So we're going to talk about not season 11 or season 10, which just happened.
10 was
10
the last
just
one.
happened.
10 was the one that just
and-
happened.
11's coming up.
We're diving
I
back
can't
21 years to episode 20 of season 3, Jose Chung's From Outer Space. Yeah. And like I said, it's kind of like it's got that feeling of that Rashomon job, which we've already talked about, where it's the same thing but from different perspectives. So you're going to see different aspects and different kind of takes on the story. It starts off with a young couple driving back from a first date, and and Harold, which I thought, who names their kid Harold? Who names their kid Harold?
My grandmother.
It's true. Your grandmother.
My
Yeah, 'cause your
grandmother named her oldest Harold.
Yeah, but that's a classic, 40s, 50s, 60s name. Who in the modern era would name their kid Harold, is all I got to say.
Did you get the feeling those kids were from the 50s?
Yeah, I kind of did a little bit.
It seemed
had that feeling, but then it's like, wait a minute, they're from the same time period. But yeah, it seemed like, they were coming back from the malt shop or something.
And so they're driving back, and he's professing his undying love, and she's like,
this is our first date.
First date, not sure what's going on. Hang on, relax a little bit. And then all of a sudden the car dies, and it's right out of Close Encounters. Right out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Alien encounter.
Yep, the spotlight shows up, and then the two, the classic alien depictions.
Gray men.
The Greys.
Yeah.
The Greys, aliens. My hair is not spiky enough for me to talk about this episode right now. Seriously, it's not teased up high enough. I still got my Uncle Jesse hair working. It's Dolly's fault that reference is coming up. And then they show up, and the guy gets pulled out of the car, and then the damnedest thing happens.
A third alien
shows up who's bigger and nastier looking.
It kind of reminded me of like a Japanese Godzilla type.
It was supposed to be kind of an homage to Harryhausen.
Okay,
but they
that feeling that was feeling I got.
The funny thing is that they couldn't actually. They didn't have the time to do the claymation. So what they did was they put a guy in a suit, and they had him move really fast. And then they slowed the film down so it looked like it was.
I don't know. It definitely looked like an homage to Godzilla.
Harryhausen.
That was cool though. I did get that feeling of Ray Harryhausen and the stop motion
know who
animation.
that is,
Well, we're going to have a discussion about that.
Okay.
We'll make a podcast about Ray Harryhausen, and that'll bring up all sorts of classics movies from the 50s and 60s. But anyway, I think it was funny because for me, I think. To go off track real quick, with Joss Whedon, one of the best things he does is the callbacks. So you have something that pops up, and then there's a reference to it later on in the show or towards the end of the movie, that same line comes up, like with Age of Ultron. You didn't see that coming, was that running line. So with the young couple, they're in the car dies.
What are those things?
And what are those? How the hell did I? When you see the gray aliens, the girl asks her boyfriend there, what are those things? And his reply is, oh, how the hell am I supposed to know? And then all of a sudden, the gray aliens are taking the guy out of the car, and this big fella, the Harryhausen effect, shows up, and the gray aliens look at each other. Who the hell is this guy? How the hell am I supposed to know? And in perfect English, I'm like, what? What is going on here? So that was my first clue that. Why am I watching this? It's like, wait, what?
That was very strange at that point because I don't remember. I remember bits and pieces of this episode from watching it 21 years ago, and then going back, I'm like, man, this is bad.
Yeah,
this is
think
bad.
No, I don't think bad.
It was like the cheese factor was like worse for them.
Because you can shut off your brain for 40 minutes.
So much of the X-Files show was serious and scary, and this one was just
goofy.
I loved it because of
That's a good word.
And when you were talking about the Rashomon job and it being from lots of different points of view, and what really makes it very much a Rashomon episode is the fact that you can't trust any of the narrators.
Right.
Nobody's telling the truth, not even when you see Scully talking to Jose Chung, because it's from Jose Chung's point of view.
Yeah, you don't realize it until after the fact.
Yes. That is actually from his book, so you can't really trust anything she says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I do like it, except for a couple of brief moments in time, that Scully seems to be the only anchor to reality throughout the whole episode. And I know that was kind of Scully's role through the course of the show, was to be the skeptic, to be the one who's going to be detached and more objective and look at things more openly and try to be analytical and critical of it rather than just accept it like Mulder would. So, the handful of episodes I've watched over the years, either live or on syndication, she always gave me that the confidence that you could at least relate to this character. And so to see her throughout the course of this, from outer space episode, to have that, except for like a couple of moments when you get it, that this is all from different people's perspectives, that's easy enough to figure out. But then, like when they're doing the autopsy and the way she's kind of analyzing things and going through the motions and whatnot. Okay, all right, and then she's questioning Mulder on a couple of things. Okay, I get it. So I tried to just basically watch Dana Scully throughout the entire episode because I halfway through I was like, I know I'm doing my homework. I have to do my homework for the podcast. I have to get to the end of the episode. But I was like, my
You're
thumb,
I'm done.
my thumb was on the stop button through most of the second half of that episode.
Well, part of it was sort of a nod to skeptics because Chris Carter really always paid attention, and like things like Skeptical Inquirer used to bring the show up. He actually spoke at Psycop, which is over in Amherst, about it's a TV show.
Okay.
And if you notice, it's held in Class County. That's named after Philip Klass, an aeronautical engineer who's one of the bigger UFO debunkers of the 20th century.
Okay.
So a lot of it in the Men in Black, which was like a thing probably from Ray Palmer's magazine.
That's another
the guy
thing.
Invented it, and so.
Because honestly, it was so confusing to me. I want to do a play-by-play analysis like we do for the book club series, but I'm going to have a hard time picking up on what thread to go to next. But having Jesse the Body Ventura as one of the Men in Black with his very erudite and multisyllabic explanations for everything was just like
The planet Venus.
yes.
But the surprise of
Seen the planet Venus.
But the surprise
the
cameo.
surprise of the other Man in Black.
The other Man in Black. So through most of the episode, whenever Jesse shows up, you get the implication that there's a second Man in Black there. But you never really get to see him until they're interacting with Mulder and Scully directly. And then all of a sudden you see it's Alex Trebek. It's like, wait, what?
Well, and then the funny part is when it cuts back to Jose Chung and Scully talking, it's like, Alex Trebek, the game show host?
Yes.
It's like, well, he didn't say it was him, but it
Looked like
him.
That blew my mind.
Wasn't it? It was supposed, the second Man in Black was supposed to be Johnny Cash.
Yes.
Really?
But he was unavailable. But they wrote the first part for Jesse Ventura, who in several interviews has admitted that he had no idea what he was saying. He's like, I read the script, I delivered the script, I didn't know what it was.
Well, and Jose Chung himself was originally written for
Truman Capote.
Truman Capote.
The problem being it was written for him after he died.
Whoops.
So, and then,
Timing is everything, really.
And Rip Taylor
then they
was
wanted
the second
Rip,
choice.
They wanted Rip Taylor,
and he was unavailable.
He was unavailable, so they went with Charles
Nelson Riley.
As a kid that grew up babysat by 1970s game shows, I know Charles Nelson Riley was originally a sitcom actor, a theater actor, and I thought he was fantastic in this. I loved seeing him in a role.
Yeah.
And I thought he was excellent in it. I just felt as someone that hadn't seen the X-Files before that I was missing inside jokes, and that was my problem.
Okay.
Yeah, and in terms of Capote, it's too bad they couldn't have found a ghostwriter for him to play it.
Oh,
God.
Where is it?
Come on.
Where is it?
You weren't prepared for that?
No.
You should always be
When Rob
prepared.
is at the table, you have to have it ready.
Oh,
You have to have it ready.
Well, I kind of giggled when they had the Dungeons and Dragons reference in there,
Yes.
and things like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for years.
I've
I
learned
know
a little
something
bit about courage.
I mean, it was like everything rolled up into one.
It's one enchilada
Episode.
of
It was.
weirdness. So, how do we talk about this episode even further now? It's because it's just what was it basically? Was it really a story about aliens, or was it the perception of them? Because were aliens already or was it just by this point in the show had we actually gotten legitimate evidence of it? Was Mulder on the right path, or is it just more kookiness and Mulder was just a conspiracy theorist?
Well, he always had those elements of the conspiracy theory in him. But the thing is, and I think Scully was as well, but she took it from a more scientific point of view, whereas Mulder was so gung-ho to immediately accept it and then worry about it later. Like if in the course of investigating it they proved it wrong, okay, that's fine, but his initial response was, I'm going for it. Whereas she would sit back and just kind of shake her head at him. Like, you know, I know I can't remember the exact word, but when she was talking to Jose Chung and he was saying something about how Mulder was, you know, it was not in very positive comments how he was describing him.
Yeah.
You know, and then the guy who busted into the autopsy with the camera, and he's like, Agent Scully, you're being polite. The guy's a nut. You know?
Yeah. That's why I think it was sort of a satire of it, because imagine if you watched this episode and never watched the series before. What would you think the series was about, really? You know?
We'd think that it was like a hoax and cheesy and
debunking.
Now, have you seen Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense from Millennium?
No, I have not. That's not a show I've watched.
It's a follow-up.
He was one of the crossover people.
It was a crossover from the Fox's Millennium series.
Oh, really?
So they did. It was the 9th episode of the 2nd season. So it's one of Sherry's middle of the
pack type of things. She likes that middle of the pack.
So Charles Nelson Riley, playing Jose Chung, comes to the aid of Frank Black and the Millennium Group when a bizarre religious group known as Self-O-Safi, a parody of the real-world Scientology, targets him for harassment because of his authorship of a short story concerning the cult. The question becomes, as Frank puts it, what the hell's going on here? It's like, how the hell should I know? Type thing. So I'm like,
so at some point they thought enough of the character to bring him back for another shot.
Yeah. And, you know, and now I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that part of Millennium because if you were an X-Files fan, you kind of
gravitated towards Millennium like I did.
Type thing.
And then unfortunately he canceled that and went back to the X-Files.
Yeah, so.
All right. As an X-Files fan and having watched this episode, I'm going to refer this to the X-Files fans in the room. You know, what should I take away from this episode? What should I ignore? And then where should I start? If I really wanted to kind of give X-Files an honest look at this point, if this episode gave me enough inclination to go start, do I start at the beginning? Do I start at season 2? Do I skip that, jump to season 4? Do I just watch the movie? You know,
don't watch the movie.
Don't watch the movie.
No, I think truly you probably would start at the beginning because it starts the relationship between the believer and the non-believer, the one that believes in all, that there's other forms out there, and then the one that's the scientist.
It's paramount. It's what the whole show is really about.
Right.
The relationship between the two? Or,
and this is...
Is it a Sam and Diane thing? Sorry to interrupt, but is it? Do they hook up? They hook up, don't they?
I don't think they ever
did. I don't think they ever officially...
There was always that tension, but it never officially happened.
He did propose to her at one point, but it was a joke.
Yeah. So, and like this episode, it talks about their different perceptions of it, that they perceive Scully as the quote-unquote believer and Mulder is not the believer type thing, because he's telling them, don't publish the book, because...
Right.
So they kind of switch places.
Is this one of those episodes where they just try and do something different to, I don't want, not keep the fans entertained, but just maybe even to keep themselves entertained? Like this past year, Supergirl did an episode where they basically sang and danced. It turned into an episode of Glee.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because most of the cast was from Glee at one point. Did they bring in The Flash?
Yes.
Okay, so
and
there you go.
Moonlighting back in the day had an episode where it took place in like the 30s or 40s.
Get that whole film noir kind of a feel.
Exactly.
I remember that episode. Yeah. We should book club that episode because that was a lot of fun.
Well, Gillian Anderson does state that this is one of her absolute favorite episodes.
Really?
That she had so much fun doing.
Because it's not in her normal element. It was different for them. So
they gave her a chance to do something different with Scully.
And it looks at the author Jose Chung's perception of these characters type thing. So he sees her as the person and this whatever.
As a non-ex-philiac or whatever I would be.
Ex-philiac?
I got the impression I was missing inside jokes on how the characters interact with each other.
There's definitely lots of inside stuff that goes on the first 3 seasons, and it's funny because I think the alien that was sitting in the cage smoking a cigarette,
that made me laugh.
It reminded me of the Smoking Man.
Yeah,
and that's a reoccurring.
And the line that he says, "This can't be happening. This can't be happening," is brought back several times later in the series.
So it pays homage to other things that have happened in the series.
See, and that really F's with my OCD.
Because you're a completist, and now you have to go back and start at the beginning. I know. But, yeah, so, I mean, we were diehard X-Files fans every Friday or Sunday night and whatever, and if we couldn't be home, we were recording it on our VCR.
All right, so help me translate
I was
some
a
of the.
preteen
Go ahead,
at
Dally.
that time.
What's that, Dal?
I was a preteen
Boy.
when X-Files came out, and
I wanted
I
to
didn't
be
get
Scully.
to watch what I wanted to watch, so I never actually watched X-Files. Wanted to. I mean, I watched the movie.
Can we take a moment to talk about the diner scenes?
I wanted to bring those up. Because I was going to actually ask that. The question I was forming was, is there like a primer, a key to the in-jokes? Because I was going to ask about the diner scene, because the first version of it, when, Mulder's there talking to the pilot.
Did you notice what he was doing with his food?
Yeah, I was going to say the little slight pig, kind of molding his mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't the only one who caught that.
Yeah, the
All right.
homage to, what was that, Close Encounters?
Close Encounters.
Uh-huh.
And then the second one where it was him with the pie.
Sweet potato pie.
The sweet
Yeah,
potato pie.
That was actually a homage to another show that David Duchovny was on.
Red Shoes Diary.
No.
Californication.
No,
You're not
this was-
helping. You're really
Evolution.
not helping here.
What?
Evolution.
Evolution. That was a great
I actually
movie.
like that movie.
I love that movie.
I still do it.
Twin Peaks.
Twin
Twin
Peaks.
Peaks.
Twin Peaks.
David Duchovny was in Twin Peaks?
Yes, he was.
Oh,
Seriously?
Yes, he
Yes,
was.
he was.
Yes, he was.
I did not know
I
that.
completely forgot about
Yep.
that because
That makes
they brought
a
him
lot
back
more
in the
sense.
reboot.
Because I was going to ask if there was some sort of a homage going on there to something other David Lynchy type of a. Because you know what?
Yes.
That's it.
There was.
That's what I was thinking the entire time. This episode made me feel like David Lynch was behind it somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Because it was just there was so much. It wasn't just perception. It wasn't just. It was absurd. There was
That's
almost,
what I love about it.
It was almost like the level of obnoxious. But
I don't think it quite reached that.
oh, I was there. I mean, especially with but when you have the gray alien in the cage smoking a cigarette, doing the Rain Man back and forth, going, "This is not happening. This is not happening." For me, that was like, what?
That's kind of how you felt watching the episode.
Seriously, I wanted to be sitting there doing the Rain Man thing myself, going, "This
But
is
I
not
just
happening."
loved how it turned everything on its head. The gray was supposed to be the bad guy, and then he's the one in the cage, and the guy saying, "I won't let anything else happen to you," just before she's sucked up.
And he hides in the corner.
I loved
Yeah, you're a great protector.
that. I loved that about it.
Yeah, there was so much going on there.
Wow, he was
And-
in just a recent episode of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They brought him back.
DE agent Dennis Bryson or Dennis something, and now Denise Bryson.
Yeah, because
so
they brought him back in drag because he had
made the
transitioned,
reference. Yeah, he,
Yes. Yeah.
in between the original Twin Peaks
Agent
and
Dennis,
the new Twin
and
Peaks.
then
Which
Okay.
is what the character wanted.
Yes.
Yes.
And
That's
they hinted at it in the original series, and then he came out in full drag, and
yeah, there was 3 episodes.
yeah,
in-
nobody seemed to care because David
Well,
Lynch
that's-
was
And
sitting
that
there
was
yelling at him
1990.
because he. Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Exactly.
Maybe watch even though I wasn't watching it.
Yes.
See,
Oh, yes.
I just want to see David Duchovny in drag.
You know what? The thing
Go
is,
see Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
oh,
That's a great movie. That is another great one.
But
Billy,
the thing is,
did you have a point, Billy?
No, I was looking at the Wikipedia for this episode and noticed a couple additional nods it gave, like the job of lineman, which what was the character's name? Rocky.
Yeah, Rocky.
That was the job held by Richard Dreyfuss's character in Close Encounters.
Was it really?
Yeah.
There's a nod. That's interesting.
And I just want to say I like the detective where they replaced his swearing words.
Oh, with the bleepy. Yeah, he's actually saying bleepy, blanky, bleepy.
I thought that was funny. I like when
Well,
they.
he didn't really say bleep.
Yeah. And at the end,
said
the,
naughtier,
the
I've
last
done
scene that the
that.
detective was in, and he's walking away, and you can hear under his breath, blank. I did get a kick out of that.
when they see the dead alien, that's a bleeping dead alien right there. If I've ever seen one.
Oh my God! And David Duchovny's response when walking up to the
That high-pitched
to the dead-
shriek.
That was so,
Oh my God! Yes.
that was so amazing.
I thought he was a mandroid until he saw. I
Eric,
can't get my voice that.
Erica
high.
was in the other room when that happened. All of a sudden, that screech hits, and she goes, "What scared her?" Like that was. I go, "Honey, that was David Duchovny," and she goes, "No." So I had to rewind that actually, so she could see it.
I think that is the single funniest moment in all of the X-Files.
Because it was so deadpan too. He just walks up and goes, "Ah!" What?
And I think another thing about that episode, because actually later on that evening I ended up catching the second half of the redo of Ghostbusters and watching Chris Hemsworth. Because he was the best part of that movie for me. The sandwich thing at the end, but
I mean,
it harkened
there's a reason to watch that movie. That's it right there.
It harkened back to me to watching the old Mel Brooks movies, because it's like they take these serious actors and they let them off the rails, and it's like maybe it's just like a little mental break for them that they can get that opportunity to be goofy, to be silly, something they're not usually permitted to do in what they're acting in. You know. Just something different to, kind of blow off a little steam and see that, hey, we can be funny.
And I love the inside joke of just the name, Jose Chung.
I don't understand.
Okay. There was a ongoing joke, ongoing prank going on behind the scenes where one of the people in production would call up, say their name was Jose Chung, and want to know about an unsolicited script that he had submitted. And he would call like at uneven intervals and just, well, did you get my script? And so it just became this ongoing thing. So then when they needed a name, they chose that name. And then people were confused when all of a sudden they had a script with the name Jose Chung on it.
And then they get Charles Nelson Riley to play a guy with a Hispanic first name and an Asian last name.
Yep.
And so that in and of itself was like, well, what? I gotta think how many times during the course of the evening last night when I was watching this episode did I go, what? What is going on here?
See, I watched it at midnight-ish.
Oh, there you go.
After I watched the baseball game Friday night and some post-game, and then let me watch this X-Files. I'm still awake, and I don't normally get to stay up late. And so I just thought maybe it was the hour at which I was watching it. Maybe it either enhanced my enjoyment of it or made me a little more confused, but just willing to go with it.
It's like heavy metal, Pink Floyd's The Wall, and Fantasia. Those are things you have to watch when you're stoned out of your damn mind.
2001.
So 2001: A Space Odyssey. X-Files you have to watch at midnight to be able to get a true appreciation of it.
I think I might have to do that tonight.
What, get stoned out of your mind?
Well, no.
No,
it's Sunday.
And if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. But anyway. But
what, watch X-Files at midnight?
Yeah, rewatch that episode
X-Files
at midnight tonight and see if it changes anything.
It'll make more sense if I was exhausted. That's the thing.
That's going to be the new label, Watch After Midnight.
Watch after midnight.
Is that our new rating system?
That's,
I give it 3 Watch After Midnights.
and the damn thing is we'll have to clarify that because, in essence, what will happen is people will be like, oh, is it not appropriate for children? No, you just have to be really that tired and that weird.
No,
you have to be...
honestly, that's one of the reasons late night talk shows, the monologues are funnier if you stay up. If you're rewatching it on DVR or back in the old days VHS, it's not as funny as if you're up late watching Letterman or Carson. You laughed harder late at night than you do rewatching it the next day in the afternoon.
I agree. My example for that is I've been watching Jimmy Kimmel lately. But I also have an Echo Dot, so I have my Alexa flash report in the morning, and the last thing on the report is she breaks out with Jimmy Kimmel's monologue from the previous night. And I'm like, oh, this is good. I laughed a lot last night, and I didn't find it as funny in the morning as I did in the evening, apparently. So there's something to be said about that, I think.
The other night, I fell asleep with my iHeartRadio stand-up comedy channel on, and I woke up in the middle of the night, just randomly, you wake up, I heard a monologue, a Chris Rock piece, which I'm sure is hilarious, but I remember laughing hysterically, going, I'll never forget this, and I'll come back, and I can't tell you what it was. I just know it was Chris Rock, and I was laughing so hard I was crying, and now I don't know what it was.
Those are great moments. It's sad that we can't remember them sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, you might get a different perspective watching this.
So you want me to watch Jose Chung from Outer Space at midnight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not tonight, though.
Not tonight.
How about this? It couldn't hurt.
It couldn't hurt.
So, Chris, I have a question for
Go ahead,
you.
Sherry.
Do you normally like absurdist humor?
Not really.
Then that's the problem.
I do.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a dystopian type novel or.
Well, I don't
book
know
or,
if I need to have that in my life as much as that's been pointed out. But like Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler movies, I
No,
can't.
that's not absurdist.
That's not
That's
okay.
not
Give me
absurdist.
an example.
Monty Python.
Monty
See, I
Python.
love Monty Python.
Old Mel
Mel Brooks, yeah.
I love that stuff.
But I'm talking before he went full on parody. I'm talking like
Yeah.
silent movie. I'm talking
Silent movie was phenomenal.
high anxiety. Those type movies are more
Airplane.
absurd.
The 12
Do you like
Airplane.
Airplane was hilarious, and that's one of those silly.
Then you're
you know,
obviously wrong. You really enjoyed this X-Files episode.
Okay. Billy knows the truth is out there.
Surely you did.
Because I'm telling you, I don't
did,
like.
and don't
I
call
don't
me
like what I
Shirley.
call.
There it is.
I don't like what I call stupid comedy, and that's
Yeah,
when we're
that's
talking.
Will Ferrell and-
Like there's only one Will Ferrell movie I actually like.
And that is
That is
The last one.
no. Oh my God, totally blanking on the name of it. He turns out he finds out that he's a character in a novel.
I was
But
just
he's a
it's
real
got Emma
person.
Thompson
Oh, is
in
it
it, right?
like
An Emma Thompson.
sliding
Think of the name
doors
of
or
it,
something
though.
like that? No.
I got nothing on that one.
Hold on, looking.
It's really an excellent film. It's so good, and it's
Looking.
very absurdist.
well, figure it out, and we'll
Stranger
book
Than
club it.
Fiction.
Stranger than Fiction,
there you
yes,
go.
that's a fantastic film.
Kiefer Sutherland's back in the White House. Sorry.
Is
Oh,
24
that's that,
coming back?
Yeah.
No, Designated Survivor.
Survivor.
Yes, I love that show.
I'm like, sorry, I got distracted.
Well, didn't they do
by
it 24
Kiefer
without him?
Will Ferrell
Anyway.
when I
Yeah,
want to
he
turn my
did.
brain
Yeah.
off.
See,
What's that?
Like I watch Will Ferrell when I want to turn my brain off. Like I love Step Brothers when I just feel
Oh
like
God, I can't do it. I can't do it. Those
And there's
find
only a couple
just-
Adam Sandler films I'll watch.
Only
like,
the ones with Drew Barrymore.
Yes, 50 First Dates.
I don't like Drew Barrymore.
The Wedding Singer.
The Wedding Singer, and the most recent one that they did together wasn't.
I don't know,
terrible.
but the only other movie I've seen is Happy Gilmore because
See,
that
for me,
that
it began and ended with Billy Madison.
Can I tell you something that I'm very, very ashamed of, but I will tell you anyways, Tanya?
Ooh, this would be
because
good.
I love you.
Tell us. Get the
I've
dirt.
seen Happy Gilmore 7 times in the theater.
Willingly?
Wow.
No was paid to do it each time, and over
By
a
who?
2-week period,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to die. It was part of my job.
Get in the hole.
What
No,
kind
don't-
of job do you have that you watch Happy Gilmore 7
I
times?
used to work for a program where I would pick up people with developmental disabilities,
Oh,
adults,
okay.
and take them out for the evening. And when I first started, they're like, "Oh, we'll give her a really easy week. We'll schedule her to go take all of her groups to the movies." And I had 7 different groups.
and you
And
had
I
to see-
felt this is not for me. This is for them. I let them choose the movie.
And they
Every
all chose
single
Happy Gilmore.
Group chose Happy Gilmore. It's also why I've
Wow.
seen a Very Brady sequel in the theater too.
That's pretty. I saw that. I thought that was funny. I enjoyed that.
Oh Lord.
And we won't even discuss the cable guy.
I love cable.
Oh, actually, dark. That's very dark.
It was very dark.
Did
Is that
anybody
the one
else
with Jim
like?
Carrey?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Matthew.
Before he began his
Broderick.
weird
Going
crusade.
Am I the only one that didn't like Wedding Crashers?
I didn't even watch
I've
Wedding
never seen
Crashers.
Okay.
That's Vince Vaughn and
That's Vince
uh,
Vaughn.
Yeah.
Owen
I liked,
Wilson.
I
Yeah.
liked Wedding
Yeah.
Crashers.
And we started
okay
watching
with
it the
it.
other night and then decided not to anymore.
I think we did that too at one point. We're like, yeah, no.
This is sort of like our own Jose Chung. We're going all over the place.
No, that's normal for this is normal.
From different perspectives.
Yeah. This is very normal
Yeah,
for
I
us
don't
to be
like
all
Drew
over God's green
Barrymore.
earth.
No,
No, I don't like anything she's done.
I'm hit or
Firestarter.
miss with
Firestarter was a good movie.
E.T.
E.T.
I
was
don't-
cute.
I don't like E.T.
scared me when I was a kid.
Why not? He's a Jedi. It's another Star Wars movie. Seriously. We
He's
love
got a
Star
phone
Wars.
home.
Watch it. It's a Star Wars spin-off. That's
Yeah,
all.
Monk didn't like E.T. either.
Well, it's okay.
I like Reese's
Nobody's
Pieces.
perfect.
The first place
yeah.
I saw my very first crush,
Who's your very first crush?
Henry Thomas?
Thomas Owl.
Oh,
Ah, that's right. Yeah, as you've talked about her in the past too. Him. Sorry.
whoa!
Whoa!
That's it. We're calling him.
I'm going to put my glasses down because obviously I can't see shit. Oh boy.
I met him once.
Oh, there it is. Shots fired from the back of the room.
Catching fire from the back row. The peanut gallery has thrown harpoons.
You're like, ooga, ooga, dive,
Yeah, dive.
Where do we go from here?
I hope to Christ this works. All right, how far into this are we? Are we far enough in that we can actually just say it's it? I'm done.
35 minutes.
Damn.
Okay, so So, Zach, you suggested this one.
Yes.
Okay, for those who did not enjoy the absurdist humor or just didn't get the inside jokes, can you recommend someplace else for people to start?
Honestly, I agree with what Tanya said. You kind of have to start from the beginning. At least give it a couple episodes, because it's the dynamic between the two that is the most important, because that leads to everything else.
Gotcha.
Well, I will also state that the whole thing for the Not a Book Club came from our conversation about what was watchable, rewatchable, and what was not.
Yeah.
And this was I was having a real hard time getting through the first season.
Mm-hmm.
It's very serious.
Right.
It's very...
Macabre.
No. It's kind of slow.
Okay.
So you got to get through...
See, but now, if you think about it, like with Chris, having watched this one first, the most absurd episode that ever was, having seen that it gets to that point eventually, maybe do you think it might make it a little more tolerable at the beginning with it being as slow as it was?
Well, I knew this
day?
episode was coming, and I was still having trouble.
I mean, I know in terms of the series in general, I watched it all the way through, and I call myself a lukewarm fan because when it first came out, I was going to a New Year's party. I had to wait to watch the Jersey Devil episode. I really got into it.
That was a good
episode.
episode.
I really got into it. And I like the funnier episodes like War of the Cockrophages. But I always said, I just thought for me, the show in entirety could have been better. That was me. It was like I was waiting for it to just take that leap to going, okay, I like this, but it doesn't get a lot of momentum here. Come on, take that next level. But it kept going back. I thought the alien stories sometimes that went along were not doing it for me.
I think, in my opinion, the show was best when it was monsters, when they were dealing with just like things like the Jersey Devil.
Do they do like full-on paranormal stuff, like supernatural paranormal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, before it started switching mainly to government cover-ups and conspiracies and assassinations
that's when
and all
I
that.
did not, which is probably why I had so much trouble with the first season, is because they had more of that. It was more, you were very aware that these were government agents, and there was more of the bureaucracy at that time, whereas in second, third, fourth seasons, you were starting to get more into... It's one of the few shows that can say I actually enjoyed more the Creature of the Week.
See, I love the Monster of the Week format. When Smallville first started, that was sort of the thing. What kryptonite-infected person would bother Clark and his friends this week? And I like that rather than having to think about how this episode ties in with a season and a half ago with the one side character and trying to keep all that straight.
Yeah, and the irony of that was Chris Carter was a huge fan of Kolchak the Night Stalker.
I love that show.
I love that show myself. And he didn't want to do the Monster of the Week because he thought that's why the show started going downhill so fast. But I do agree that I think the Monster of the Week episodes on X-Files were the best episodes.
All right. So for those of us who are not X-Files fans, and our introduction to the show was this absurd piece of storytelling, the recommendation is, yes, you're go back, start to the beginning, be aware that the first season is slow and methodical, but use that as a foundation to then go forth into the rest of the story. And be prepared to have to watch something completely ridiculous again when you get about 2/3 of the way through the third season.
Yes.
But it'll make more sense the second time through, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Spoil this thing for me. Are there really aliens in the X-Files universe?
You'll have to watch and see.
No, spoil it for me. I want to know. I want to know.
Comic book.
Is it a real? Is it because do they eventually like make contact with something, or has it just been one debunking after another? They're not saying a thing. You guys are not. You're not on my
2 + 2 is
side.
chicken.
The truth isn't here; it's out there.
It's out there. The truth is out there.
Yes.
You know, and I'll tell you that.
And right now, it's been so long, I couldn't even
Couldn't even tell
you.
See, that I would think something like that would be memorable.
And Sam never made it home. Oh, that's Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap.
Did they ever? Wait, did Gilligan and the Professor ever get off the island?
Once
They got off on the island.
Once they beat the Harlem. Oh, yeah. Once they beat the Harlem Globetrotters.
That's
it.
right.
That was
Scooby-Doo was the referee. I remember that.
Okay, Chris, is that your fan fiction?
No, not really.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, I'm not old enough for that yet. Let me make this observation, and then the diehard fans can tell me if I'm in the right spot. The truth is out there is one of the slogans, but I want to believe is one of the other common phrases. I want to believe. I get the feeling, and watching it last night kind of put this thought in my head, where I want to believe can go in two different ways depending on which main character you're looking at. With Mulder, I want to believe means he's willing to accept anything because he wants to believe. But with Scully, it's I want to believe I would like to, but there's too much telling me that it's not. So am I
well,
kind
there's
of in
an
the ballpark
interesting
there?
episode where Scully's a Christian. And
Right.
There's an episode, I don't remember the name of it, but Michael Berryman's in it. It's got stigmata.
Mm-hmm.
And Mulder says something to the effect, you take this as your faith, but you can't believe this, what I believe
Right.
in.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely pulls on to like her religious beliefs that
Okay.
you believe that with the Christian values, but you can't necessarily believe that there's potential of having aliens out there. So it's like then it goes into her medical scientific type
Mm-hmm.
thing that this is what it's very structured for her.
Gotcha.
So she has her faith, but then she doesn't necessarily believe in that.
And a lot of
science
characters in
fiction
a lot
fantasy.
of different shows and movies and books, a lot of characters have gone through that kind of conundrum where they are religious, they have a faith to them, but there's certain things they just can't accept, and it's like, wait, what qualifies and what doesn't? So it's I guess that would be something to concentrate as you watch the Scully character evolve.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think you hit the nail right on the head
How did I do that?
with the the two different perspectives of
the
four
same
simple
thing.
words. I want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want to believe because this is everything I've thought about my entire life. Versus, well, I kind of want to, but it's a little far fetched or out there. But no, it's absolutely, and it's like, how do people with two such opposing viewpoints on such an already polarizing thing kind of get along as well as they did for the run of the show and be able to work together in that aspect?
Scully's motivation as a character was the fact that this was her job. This was the job she was assigned to. This was her paycheck. And so if she didn't work with Mulder, she was going to be broke. So I really got the feeling that she was just like along for the ride at the beginning because her bosses told her you had to. Am I wrong in that kind of okay?
Not at all.
And then as things unfolded, she kind of, I don't know if she went all in. I'm not as much of a fan, so I don't know a lot of the later episodes. Did she ever go all in, do you think?
All in? I wouldn't say all in,
No.
but she became,
less skeptical.
Okay.
/ a bit more open-minded.
Gotcha.
There's a great episode, and I can't even remember what it was. I always remembered this scene. Was that for some reason she goes to a town without Mulder, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and she's checking in with him, and she's saying, well, it's not witchcraft because of this, and it's not this creature because of this, and she's going down the list, and she's just like she's like
debunking everything.
Yeah, just saying it's not this, but the fact that and all of a sudden he just goes, Scully, will you marry me? It was just such a wonderful scene where he was just like, yes.
She's starting to understand. She's starting to get it.
I've got her. She's saying it's not these things, but she's actually contemplated that they were these things.
Yes, I get that. Okay, so all right, so
Now, a while back, we did a not a book club for the TV show Warehouse 13.
yes.
Was that a lighter-hearted attempt at being X-File-ish?
I was always thinking that Warehouse 13 was a lighthearted attempt to cross X-Files and Friday the 13th, or what was the one where they were always collecting the evil artifacts?
Friday the 13th.
It was the Friday the 13th, the series? Yeah. So I saw those two things being put together and thrown into the Eureka universe, which is very, not absurd, but eccentric and entertaining and lighthearted, and it has the serious adventure with the comedic aspect to it, because when you have Eddie McClintock, you get ready because nothing's going to be taken seriously. So yeah,
Oh, he was kind of serious on Bones.
that was a different show. But did somebody establish that Bones and Eureka and Warehouse 13 were all in the same universe? Somebody
No.
was talking about that one. No. I remember what it was. Bones,
It was Alphas.
Bones, Alpha, and NCIS,
And strangely enough, Laverne and Shirley.
yeah, strangely enough, and the Finder, which was a short-lived series that had Michael Clark Duncan in it.
Yes, because that was actually a spinoff.
That was a spinoff of Bones.
Pretty sure the Smurfs were involved somehow.
Somehow, most likely.
Gargamel.
Back to Jose Chung. I'm looking.
Jesus.
The Jose Chung episode, the Wikipedia says that, let's see, who's Darren? Writer Darren Morgan says that this is one of a seminal episode compares it to Twilight Zone's Eye of the Beholder and Trouble with Tribbles of the original Star Trek. It's going to be one of those episodes that is immediately revered. Mm-hmm. So, revered, everybody? We all agree? We're out.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So, so X-Files Season 3, Episode 20, Jose Chung from Outer Space, or Jose Chung's from Outer Space, is definitely an episode that is going to cause discussion. You're either going to get into it, or you're going to scratch your head. And so one way or another, it could be that gateway drug to the X-Files universe, and we would invite you to take that ride and see if maybe the truth is indeed out there.
Den of Geek listed it as the 10th best episode of the series.
10th best episode. Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak
10.
volumes of it, in my opinion. But
It's in the
we'll go
top
with it.
10.
But
Top 10.
I will say this. It's
Okay.
like it, love it, or don't understand it. I don't think I've ever met anybody that hated it.
Okay.
That particular episode.
And I will be in that list. That's fine. I definitely did not hate it. There were some things that just, I laughed a lot.
yeah,
like-
it was a lot of head scratchers.
Like, what?
And I think that really the first thing we talked about was for those who didn't watch a lot of it, it was very much a serious show. To all of a sudden seeing these characters that you've just spent almost 3 whole seasons with be so absurd was just amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So I can see the value of that.
Yeah.
It's like watching Game of Thrones, and suddenly Game of Thrones does a whole Benny Hill episode.
Yeah.
You know.
That would definitely make you scratch your head.
Yeah.
The musical episode of Supernatural.
That was a great
Or
episode.
any of theirs.
They do it,
or The French Mistake.
There it is.
I guess
Changing
that's
channels.
our cue.
I think Billy, you're just having some fun.
No, I like the Benny Hill theme.
That's it. Well, that's a great thing.
Are you sure it wasn't her cue?
That episode.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
Yellow Fever.
So from there, basically from there, we'll go ahead and just say, this could be that gateway drug, like I said, to the X-Files universe. So give it a shot. Be wary of, the first season and what we've said about it. Be wary of what's coming up in the third season.
Now I'm definitely going to have to go back and rewatch it to find those other little cameos because
See, that's it
I
now.
see Blaine is seen wearing a Space Above and Beyond T-shirt during his interview, and that was a great show that
was a
they
fun
canceled.
show.
I noticed that right away, actually.
I had my phone in front of me for some of it, so I didn't
So
really see it.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to step away from the X-Files conversation. We'll take this plane in for a landing for today's episode. And I just want to mention real quick that today, as we're recording, is October 15th. So it's going to be a couple of weeks before you hear this, but it's October 15th, and it's been 1 year of Monkey Business.
Really?
Our first anniversary, our first episode was aired on October 12th of 2016. And so I just want to say happy birthday to us. It's been a year, 52 episodes.
And we got
52,
treats
53.
today.
We got treats.
54th. This is the
54th episode, and Sherry brought in cupcakes, so we're celebrating
And
right
I'm
now.
expecting
They
by
had
the
cookies.
by the time you hear this, I'll be in the hospital in diabetic
A
coma.
diabetic coma. Yeah.
I may be dead.
Have some
You're
protein.
hearing me from beyond the grave.
Have some protein.
Pretty spooky, isn't it?
Offset
I'm
it.
beyond the grave.
That's
Offset
plug,
that sugar
apparently.
with protein.
Cheap plug, monkey.
but we
My
want
business
to.
has the same birthday as my sister.
Look at that.
She texted me and asked me to work her into this somehow. So there you go.
There
Allison.
you
There you
go.
go.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to Zach's sister. What was her name again?
Allison.
Allison. Happy birthday to
Just
Her
turned
Allison.
birthday and my death day.
We're not
Would you stop?
We're not done with you yet, Billy. But I wanted to say thank
Happy
you.
Death Day.
Death Day.
I want to say thank you to.
Horrible.
I just wanted to say thank you to all of our listeners, all 5 of you, and Danny from UK.
That's number 6.
That's number 6.
No,
And
I have to say,
Zach's
I'm really
dad.
glad to be here today too, especially for the 50th anniversary. But also, I was
50th
sideswiped.
anniversary.
But I was sideswiped by Oliver Queen out there, and he said, "Hey, wait a second, it wasn't your fault. I had the Green Arrow."
There it is.
Oh!
And on that note,
And Billy was ready.
But thank you to all our listeners for hanging out with us, for often putting up with us, for joining us on this adventure, and for and keep your eyes open, because this is going to start becoming a very wild ride in the future. We've got a lot of things planned.
More so than now.
More so than now. We've got a lot of things planned. We got some stuff in the
Buckle up,
works.
baby cakes.
Buckle up, friends, because this is going to be a fun ride, and we're happy that you're joining us on it. So for Billy, For Tanya, for Dolly, for Sherry, for myself, I am Chris, for Zach, for Robin, for Monkey Girl hanging out in the background. This has been Monkey Business, a product of the Mighty Monkey Corporation. Purveyors and producers of the Flower City Comic-Con, coming at you June 9th and 10th of 2018 at the Rochester Riverside Convention Center. Follow us on Facebook. You can find us in the search bar, FC3ROC. And if you're interested in advertising or maybe sponsoring us, we can take all questions and comments through email. Sponsors at FC3ROC.com. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.